Donald Trump is absolutely desperate to get Black Americans out in the streets protesting. There have been a lot of protests over the last 4 months. And every protest that I've gone to has pretty much been white people exclusively.
So I've been thinking about this. What do Trump's policies really mean for Black people? Not just the headlines, not the party lines, just the real life impact. Because lately it's starting to look like the progress we fought for is being quietly rolled back. Stick with me to the end and I'll break it down for very simple. No political talk. We are talking about Trump's policy and Black people. My honest take, and trust me, this might challenge what you believe or confirm it. Either way, let's talk about it. So let's start with the DI programs. Now, under Trump's watch, those were basically stripped down, especially in federal jobs. If you know anything about the US government workforce, you know Black people have depended on those jobs for generations. That's how many of our people made it to the middle class, not because of handouts, but because someone finally opened the door. Now those doors slammed shut. They say it's to return to the merit, but here's my question. When the system is already unfair, who decides what merits look like? Then comes education. This one hits deep. Trump pushed this thing called the 1776 report. Basically, it's a rewrite of American history to make it sound like everything was fine and fair, which is slavery, racism, discrimination, all brushed off. They call this the patriotic education. But what it really does is it silences the truth. And if kids grow up not knowing how deep the struggle went, how can they understand the power of their voice in that day? Now, I'll be fair, he did roll out the Platinum Plan, promising economic growth and justice reform for Black Americans. But to me, that whole thing felt like a PR move. It sounded good on paper, but most of it never followed through. Meanwhile, the talk was still about law and order, which historically has meant over-politicizing our neighborhoods. You can't promise justice on one side and bring in force on the other. Look, I get the argument, but people say race-based programs are unfair, that everything should be colorblind. But here is my question to you watching. Can you face a broken system by pretending race doesn't matter? My answer is no. It's like telling someone to run the race after you've broken their leg and then removing the crutch they are using to stand. Equality isn't about giving everyone the same shoes. It's about making sure they start on the same level.
Donald Trump's racist provocations are going to lead to violence sooner or later, and that's what he wants. Recently, he issued an executive order that was basically titled Unleash the Police. And last week, his Civil Rights Division in the Department of Justice, led by Harmeet Dillon, did a couple of things. She announced that she is shifting the focus of the Civil Rights Division away from what its focus has been for the last 70 years that made it the crown jewel of the Department of Justice. She is shifting its focus away from discrimination against marginalized communities in the United States, including Black people in the LGBTQ community and women and the disabled, to focusing on discrimination against white Christians in the United States, religious discrimination against religious people. And we all saw Donald Trump's treatment of the Black president of South Africa in the Oval Office this week. Donald Trump is absolutely desperate to get Black Americans out in the streets protesting. There have been a lot of protests over the last 4 months. And every protest that I've gone to has pretty much been white people exclusively. And the police have just hung out on the outer edges, leaning up against buildings. The one protest that I read about where there were a significant number of arrests was in Philadelphia, and most of the people that were arrested were Black people, and the majority of those were Black women. A lot of those were older Black women. Donald Trump wants racial violence in the streets in the United States, and he can't get that unless there are Black people, Black Americans protesting in the streets. He wants that, first of all, because he's incredibly racist and he hates Black people, and he really hates Black women, especially educated Black women. But he also wants to use it as a pretext for his martial law.
Black, stop scrolling, because didn't we agree that we were staying inside, right? This was their fight. Because it's not just her. It's her too. Now, if you're black and you're out there and you don't understand why this is not our fight, it's because, think about it. They just reenacted martial law 4 days ago. The Republicans, all Republicans in the House of Representatives just voted for U.S. citizens to be deported, including children with cancer. And if you don't believe me, go look it up. It's on video. Now when you think about all the rage bait, them deleting our historic contributions. Come on now. This is not your fight. Find a way to fight it in another way. We all agreed. We all agreed. Stay at home. Because what they're going to do is arrest you and make a narrative that's the same as it's been for BLM. Lock in.
I just saw a video of 2 black women being arrested at one of those May protests. And I'm sure there were others, and there probably have been others across the country being arrested and detained. I have not seen them. My first time ever seeing any human being arrested at any one of these protests that have been taking place for months across the country were 2 black women. And when I tell you there wasn't an ally in sight, there was no barrier or wall of protection between black bodies and police. There was nobody advocating on their behalf. There was nobody walking beside them, making sure that they stayed safe in police custody, understanding how black bodies are treated differently by law enforcement. There was nobody taking down their information to make sure that they were connected with their loved ones and released safely. None of that. I left a comment underneath the video, and one of the organizers responded back. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but her words were, well, they signed up for this. And other people got arrested too. Stay your black asses at home. There is a reason that they are resurrecting deportation centers in El Salvador and Rwanda and Libya. It coincides with now U.S. citizens' ability to be deported. When our asses get carted off at these protests, thinking that our allies are going to be supporting and protecting us, who do you think is going to be filling these deportation centers? And who do you think is going to come to your aid? Stay home. And that is a directive.
Obviously, we've all seen his immigration policies and practices over the last 4 months and what he's doing to brown people and immigrants. And he wants, he and his supporters basically want an all-white America again. They want white supremacist, male-dominated patriarchy, white male-dominated patriarchy, white supremacist country that is also an authoritarian theocracy. You know, he also, his handpicked U.S. attorney in New Jersey, Alina Habba, who prior to representing him, had been an attorney specializing in representing parking garages. And she defended him, such as the case may be, in a lawsuit that he filed against Hillary Clinton and a bunch of other people that resulted in him having to pay over $1 million in their attorney's fees, Hillary Clinton's attorney's fees. She represented Trump in the civil case in New York that he lost, and he now owes the state of New York over $600 million. And she represented him in the second E. Jean Carroll case that resulted in an $83 million verdict against him. So he rewarded her legal genius by making her the U.S. attorney for the state of New Jersey. And a couple of weeks ago, 3 members of Congress and the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, went to an ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey, and there was a kerfuffle, and there were 2 people. Well, there was one person who was arrested on scene, the black mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka. And then this past week, they arrested Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, a Democrat from New Jersey, whose district includes most of Newark, New Jersey. The other 2 members of Congress were not arrested. And add in the 4 months of anti-DEI. I mean, this is an explicitly racist administration, and I'm sure that it is incredibly confusing to Donald Trump as to why Black Americans are not out in the streets in force as they were during the summer of 2020. And we saw all of the police violence that accompanied those protests because Black people were out in the streets. The last 4 months, the protests have been all white people, primarily. And Trump and local police forces do not meet those crowds with police violence. They just don't. And, you know, it's incredibly important, I think, that people who look like me continue to show up to these protests consistently day after day after day over the next several months or years. But we can always just go back home and at the end of the day and retreat into our whiteness. I heard that phrase from a Black woman on this app. I can't remember who it was, or I would give her credit, but that just stuck with me. We can retreat into whiteness. That's always our top designation category. You know, but it's like when you look at the authoritarian playbook, you know, he's got to find an enemy within. And sure, he's got immigrants. He's been railing on DEI. He hasn't yet come out and just you know, when you look at the language that he uses about immigrants, I mean, it's incredibly dehumanizing language, refers to them as vermin poisoning the blood of our country. And he did that during the campaign with the Haitians in Ohio, the Haitian immigrants in Ohio. They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. And since Inauguration Day, he hasn't used that kind of language explicitly about Black Americans at scale. But again, I think he's got to be just absolutely dumbfounded at the things that he is doing with his executive orders, what his Civil Rights Division and the DOJ is doing, how he's treated leaders like the president of South Africa, the things he's been doing with DEI. An incredibly racist administration. I'm sure he's utterly dumbfounded as to why Black Americans are not out in the streets. But if they do, and he gets to use violence, then he will have his enemy within the United States. He views immigrants as an enemy without to get rid of. But if he gets Black people out into the streets, they're going to be his enemy within. He's desperate for it. He's absolutely desperate for it.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it. You can bar my live TikTok, but I'm just going to say it. Like I've said it many times before on this platform. Okay, the white race is a hate race. Its only purpose is violence and to kill diversity. That's all it is. It's only existed for 500 years, and its sole purpose is control. White culture is a different thing. White culture is us. Irish, Scottish, Italian, Greek, whatever. Yeah, that's our culture. I do believe white people have culture. We have lots and lots of culture. But the moment we call it the white race, we throw our culture away and become a part of a hate race. Now, TikTok, you can flag me and you can stop me from talking about this in every live that you want me to. Bar me for a week. I'll make a video about how the white race is a hate race. And anybody that wants to argue that is a dickhead. Straight up. And if you can't see it and you're going to come here and jump up and down about blah, blah, white people this and white people that, mate, if you want some pride, go back to your culture. Find where you come from. Find pride in your culture. Where are your indigenous roots from, mate? We all got indigenous roots somewhere, right? We all come from somewhere. I am just sick and tired of being fucking, constantly shut up because I want to talk about a topic that you people don't want to talk about. Or think that I'm being hateful or spiteful or racist or whatever else you think. because it's not the case. I'm just trying to point out something that would heal the fucking planet. That is, if white people got off their fucking high horse of I'm superior because I have white skin and actually started to embrace their culture. Maybe we could get rid of a bit of hate. Yeah, that's all I'm saying to the world.
So my take is, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not here to ask how does it feel to you. Drop your thoughts in the comment. Let's open this conversation up, because whether you love it or hate Trump, we can't ignore the ripple effects of these choices on black futures. If you feel like this video helped you see things differently, even just a little, please consider subscribing. I've got more content like this coming, and I want us to keep talking about the stuff that actually matters. And hey, if you made this far, I appreciate you very much.